Welcome back to another week of study of Soul Cry. And I have prayed for you. I may not know your name to pray for you, but God knows, because we know from Psalm 139, He knows everything about you. When you're rising up, when you're sitting down, even sitting down to do your Bible study, He knows who you are. So I want you to know that this teacher is praying for you. I have prayed for you, that God would do a work of soul in you as you journey through your Bible study. And as we have learned and as we've been seeing, we know that God has a soul. And so everything that God does is from that level of work. So this is lesson 5. We only have 2 more weeks together. Can you believe that? So I want you to write at the top of your note sheet, because I just know that you're taking notes. You're going to want to have these. And remember, your note sheet's at the end of your lesson there. So you've got it right there in your book. But soul work. Right at the top of your sheet, a soul work. There is the ordinary work that we can do, the ordinary work of the flesh, the ordinary work of our talents and things. But then there is a soul work. And this is the level that God wants to get you and I on, that level of a soul work. I just want to read the first few verses, because I know you have soaked in Psalm 139. And it will forever be engraved upon the tablet of your heart, especially by the time we finish this journey together. But David writes this, beginning in verse 1, "O Lord, you have searched me and you've known me. You know when I sit down, when I rise up. You understand my thoughts from afar. You scrutinize my path, my lying down, and you're intimately acquainted with all my ways. And even before there's a word on my tongue, behold, O Lord, you know it. You know it all. You've enclosed me behind, my west, and before my east, and you've laid your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is too high that I cannot attain to it." And then he goes on to say, where can I flee? Where can I go from your presence, your spirit? If I go here, you're there. If I go there, you're there. Where can I go? Where can I run? There's no place too deep, too hard, too difficult, too wide, too open, too high or low, that you cannot find me or see me there. I'm always with you. Why is that? Everything that we see God doing here, that is a soul work. That's the work of the soul. And remember, just for way of review, what the word soul means. It speaks about the deepest part of us, the life of us. It's the very seat of our character and our thought process. The very seat of our character and our thought process. It's what makes us us and not someone else. That's deep stuff, isn't it? It's what makes us us and not someone else. We're different from everyone else. Your personality, everything that's in you. It's how God made your soul. It's the eternal part of you, because the soul never dies. So when God stepped up to the line of creation to make you, to create you, it was His soul stepping up to the line of your beginning. It was His soul stepping up, because He was about to do a soul work when He created you. So point number 1, if we were to read, I've got a lot of things to give you, so I hope you just look at your little hand and say, hang tough with me in this lesson. Hang tough with me in this lesson, little hand. You can do it. Give your hand a little pep talk. You can't write these down, because I'm not going to go that slow. But point number 1, what I want us to see, it is the work of God's own soul. You are the work of God's own soul. You are a soul work. You are God's work of soul. And we see this, this is what I did, and I would encourage you to do the same thing. I went through Psalm 139, and I pulled out all the yous of God, what He has done, the yous and the yours. You did this, and this is your eyes, your thoughts, you, all through Psalm 139. And I want you to listen what the soul work is when we make this list. I want you to let your soul hear it. I've written it down, of course, I've typed it down. I read this to myself. I let my soul hear it, because there are going to be moments many times in your life, in fact, that you're going to need to remind your soul of what you are. That you're a work of soul. You're a work of soul. It's the yous of Psalm 139. You have searched me. You have searched me. You have known me. You know when I sit You know when I rise. You are intimate with all my ways. You know my words before they're spoken. You have enclosed me behind and before. You are inescapable. You lead me no matter where I am. You lay hold of me with your right hand. You formed my inward parts. You wove me in my mother's womb. You are your works. You work wonders. You saw my frame in the secret place. You have seen my unformed substance. You think of me continually. You think of me so much I can't number it. You are always with me. If that doesn't comfort your soul to go through Psalm 139 and just write down the yous of God just in Psalm 139, then your soul hasn't heard it. All of this, listen, if this is true about Him, then this must be true about me. If you've done all these things, then this is true about me. God, if this is what I know about you, then this is what must be true about my life. You, write this nugget down. You are a work of the Almighty. You are a work of the Almighty. You're a work of the Almighty. And better yet, you're a soul work of the Almighty. Because when God stepped to the line, listen, He didn't step up with just His mind. He didn't step up with just His presence to make you, the creation. God stepped up with His soul to design you, to design me, to make us. You are a work of soul, a soul work of the Almighty. So this is the work of God's own soul, point number 1, and we're going to move on to point number 2, because this is where we have 2 little points under point number 2, and this is going to take us a little bit of time. But point number 2, you're not only a work of God's own soul, but you're a twofold work. In that working of soul, it's a twofold work that's taking place, a twofold work. The first part of that work in this twofold is there is the work within us. The work within us. You say, Pam, what is that work within us? This work within us, this is that deep beneath the surface work. That deep beneath the surface work that is not seen by human eye. It's not seen by human eye. No one can see this place. It's that deep beneath the surface work, that inward, the work within us. Second, it's our inner life. That inner life that's going on in here. You can sit and be having a conversation with somebody and be thinking and having a conversation with yourself on the inside. And no one out here in the conversation outward would ever know it. It's your inner life. It's also, number 3, your thinking process. Your thinking process, how you're thinking, how you rationalize, how you're working through and processing something or the thought of something. It's your emotional headquarters. I know what the men are thinking, boy, my wife's must be a big old headquarter. It's emotional headquarters. That's where it is, ladies, your emotional headquarters. It's this work within you, but it's your soul. It's this deep within work. Your emotional headquarters, your thinking process, your inner life, that deep beneath the surface work that is not seen by human eye. And next, it's this place where you are fully known. That you can be fully known. The place where you are fully known. Because listen, nothing is hidden in here. Right? Because you can protect it. Unless you let it out, no one's going to know that it's in here, right? So this is the place where you are fully known. You can't hide anything from yourself. Do you know what I'm saying? You can't hide anything from yourself. Whatever your thought is, you know it. Because this is a place where it cannot be hidden. Listen, to be fully known inside. So I want us to understand this work within us. It's the place that gives life. This work within, it's the place that gives life to the work of God. This is the place that can give life. It's what gives life to the very work of God. This whole creative process in 139 we've been studying. God started in this inner place. I saw your unformed substance. This is where the work of God comes to life. Listen, when we're born, when we begin to live life, nothing changes about these things. These things are vital for us to know. This is the place that gives life, real life, to the work of God. Nothing else. In here, this inner place. And lastly, it's the place, and this is the most important, especially for women. It's the place where our relational capacity is determined. This inner place. It's the place where our relational capacity is determined, what's within us. And you say, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? This place within you is going to determine your relationships, what your relationships are out here. It's your emotional headquarters, so it's how you're going to respond. Because most of us, until we learn to train our soul, until we learn, the Bible, we know that it's walking by the Spirit. It's that control that the Spirit will have in the life of the child or of God, the son or daughter of God. So we understand that from Scripture. But that emotional headquarters in here, this is what we're going to respond out of. And so we've got to understand what needs to be in place and what restrictions and how we allow this place to, what power we allow it to have. Because this right here, if it's in my emotional headquarters, then I need to pay attention to what's in there. I need to pay attention to it. So this emotional headquarters, it also determines my relational capacity. What kind of relationships, to what capacity? Do you know people that they will let you get to know them only out here, but they're going to put up a wall and you won't know me in the personal? I'll let you get so close, but you're not going to get any closer kind of people? And some people come to that place in life because they've been hurt by so many people. And then there's those people that really have never learned, I don't know how to have a relationship with other people. I don't know, what am I to do? How am I to respond? What am I to say? How much of me can they know about, me? How much of me can they know about my life? So your relational capacity comes from this place, from this inner place, this twofold working of the soul. And part of that soul work is this inner place. This is the big place where all of these things are taking place. All of these things are taking place. I want you to write these 4 things down under knowing these things that we just read. If all of these things we know are true, based on what we've learned in Psalm 139, all of these points have come from Psalm 139, then these 4 things we need to understand. Number 1, it is God's beginning point with us when He's bringing forth new life. It is God's beginning point with us when He is bringing forth new life. This is where God is going to start. You say, why would that be important? Because many times we want God to do a new work and to resurrect our life because we just feel like we've lost everything or we're dead to everything. And many times we're looking for that new life to come from out here rather than in here. Because whenever a new life, God's going to do a new work, He begins in here. And we miss it. We think God's not working because we're looking out here for God to change and to raise up some things. I want new life to come in my marriage. I want new life to come in my job. I want new life to come in my ministry or my teaching or my prayer life. I want new life to come in all of these areas. And God's saying, you're looking out here and you try to fix these things and you try to change these things. And if we're better at this over here, if we get a little more savvy in how we do this over here, listen, I can be drawn into this for ministry really quickly. I can think, okay, if we fix this over here and make this better, if we polish this in our lives out here, or if we go over here and we make these changes out here, then new life will come. And God's saying, no, that's not my place. That is not my place where I've said new life will come. New life, when God is bringing it about, starts in this inward place. And this is life-changing if we'll get it. If we'll get it and set our eyes inward. Because when we focus out here, when it's out here what we can see, remember this is what people can't see. This is the inward in here. When our focus is out here, do you know what's neglected? Here. We neglect here, in here, the most vital part of us, our soul, when we're focused out here. And that's where the enemy wants. That's what the enemy wants us to see. It's not in here. He wants us to focus out here. It's exactly what he did with Eve and with Adam. When he went to Eve, he set her focus out here rather than the inward. So it's God's beginning point with us when he's bringing forth new life. And second, it is his appointed place where true change can occur. It's God's appointed place where true change can occur. We might need some resurrections and some new life to come forth and some things. But do you know, if we really want to change and stop living in the lie that the enemy has taught us, which is really just an excuse, well, this is the way God made me, I'll never change. That's a lie. That's a lie. God made every soul basically that same. We know that it's the same. The personalities are different, but the soul is made the same. True change happens in here, and true change is possible for anybody. I don't care how old you are. I don't care what you've been through. But if we want true change, we've got to know that God's got to do it in here. This has got to start inward. It's got to start in the soul. This is God's ordained place where true change takes place. If we try to change ourselves in any other fashion, it's not going to work. It might last a little while, but it's going to be hard and painful, and it's going to not be successful. You're not going to succeed in the long run. True change takes place in here. And by the way, while we're on this, you can't go inside someone else and change them, no matter how much you want. I remember for years praying how all the things, I'd had a list of things that I wanted God to change about Steve. It was a pretty good list, too. He would have been the perfect man if God had just followed my list. God, I got it down. This is what he needs, and boy, he'll be perfect, and I won't have any more struggles. He will just be so easy to be a godly wife to. If you just do this, how incredible he would be. That was my thinking. And then God began to talk and work in my heart and say, listen, I'm not, with me and you, I'm not about changing Steve. When it's me and you, I'm about changing you. Your goal in life is not to change your husband. Your goal in life is not to change your children, not to change your wife, not to change your family, not to change your boss. Your goal in life is to let God change you into what he wants you to be. That inner work. Because this is the place where true change takes place. But listen, in you. And when true change takes place in here, you'll be amazed at what God can do out there. It's beautiful. Number 3, it's the place where you are known by God and where God is known by you. I love this point. It's the place where you are known by God. I'm fully known. Nobody else knows me fully. But God, you do. I am known fully by someone, and that someone is you. And God, I can also know you. You can be known, God. In this inward place, I can know you. You know me, and I can know you. And number 4, I want you to get this. I want you to get this. It is the heartbeat, this inward place, the soul place. It is the heartbeat, whether you realize it or not. It is the heartbeat of every area of your life. It's the heartbeat of every area of your life. It's the heartbeat. Every area pulsates from this place, this inward place. Listen to Psalm 51, 6 through 10. Psalm 51, 6 through 10. And David is writing this. David has just been, he hasn't just sinned, but because his sin went by for 9 months at least. We know that it was at least 9 months before, close to a year, that he thought his sin was hidden, but he was confronted with his sin of adultery and having the woman's husband killed on the front line in battle. And so David had sinned grievously. And when the baby was born, God ended up taking that baby's life. That baby didn't live long. And so David, when he's confronted with his sin, this is his response, and I love his heart. Psalm 51, 6 through 10, behold, you desire truth where? In the innermost being. That's soul. That's the soul. You desire truth in the innermost being, he wrote. And in the hidden part, listen, the part that no one sees, in the hidden part, you will make me know wisdom. You'll teach me there. You'll teach me there, in other words. And then he goes on to say, purify me with hyssop and I shall be clean. Wash me and I shall be whiter than snow. Make me to hear joy and gladness. And let the bones which you have broken rejoice. Anytime the analogy of broken bones is used, that's a deep breaking. That's an inward breaking. Hide your face from my sins and blot out all my iniquities. And here are the powerful words. Create in me a clean heart. Verse 10. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. So David's talking about this inner place, and he's talking, this is a place that I learned from you. This is a place that you desire for truth to be, in this innermost place. This is where you're looking for it to be, but this is also where you can create something new that we've talked about. The word create here, it's the same word used in Genesis 1. In the beginning, God created, Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Same word. And anytime this word is used in Scripture, it's reserved for a working of God only. It's reserved for a working of God only. So David is saying to his Creator, Elohim, Creator, I want you to make something. He's talking about this inner place. In here, God, make something new. Because the psalmist understood this inner place is where true change can happen. It's where new life can come forth. In other words, if you don't have a love for somebody that you need to have a love for, in this inner place, you can pray, God, create within me something out of nothing that is not there. Create within me a love for them. Create within me patience. Create within me kindness. Create within me faithfulness. Whatever may be missing, God is able to do it. But listen, it can't happen out here. It's got to happen in here. In this innermost being. In the hidden part, the psalmist said. There's a hidden part of you, and that's where God has to work for you to grow and to mature and for you to become the woman that He wants you to become. This is the place of true change. This is the place. And the psalmist knew it. This inner place requires, write this down, this inner place requires the presence and working of God. This inner place requires the presence and working of God. This is what it requires. Why? Because this is how God made you. He made you to require His presence and His working for new life and for change to take place on the inside. True, lasting change and growth. God designed you that way. True transformation has to begin with the soul. It has to begin with the soul. At Jabbok Ministries, people come in all the time with challenges. And some of those challenges, for example, might be addiction. And we get a lot of people in addiction, trying to come out of addiction, trying to be freed from that bondage, which is a beast. And they come in and they want to focus. Let's get in here and let's talk about my addiction. I want to talk about what, the meth or the pills, whatever their addiction, the alcohol, whatever that addiction may be. And they think they're going to come in and we're going to talk about that addiction. We're going to set all our focus on that addiction. Or they come in with trauma. PTSD, some traumatic experience they've suffered. And they come in and they think, okay, we're just going to focus on the trauma. What's happened? I'm going to focus on the addiction. No. If we set their focus out here, does true change happen out here? No. What God has taught us is we got to lift the lens and we got to focus in here. We got to go to the soul. Because as long as the enemy keeps us focused out here, the soul is neglected. The inner part is neglected. And we know where true change takes place, but we also know that it requires the presence and the working of God. But we also know true transformation can take place. I want you to listen to these words. We cannot grow spiritually. Hear these words. We cannot grow spiritually or emotionally apart from this beginning place. Apart from this beginning place. Change begins in the inner place of the soul. So there is the work within us, but there's also the work without, the work beyond us that we've been talking about. You see, when the psalmist he's going along and all of a sudden it's kind of a crazy thing. He's laid out all these beautiful things about God. You've wove me, you've made me, you've searched me, you've known me. I can't get away from your presence. And then all of a sudden, he goes in verse 19. He's just said, when I awake, I'm still with you. And then out of the blue, in verse 19, he says, oh, that you would slay the wicked, O God. Depart from me, therefore, men of bloodshed, for they speak against you wickedly, and your enemies take your name in vain. Do I not hate those who hate you, O Lord? And do I not loathe those who rise up against you? I hate them with the utmost hatred. They have become my enemies. And then he goes back to search me. And you think, what happened there? You had this beautiful psalm, and it's just focused on God and this inner working, and all of a sudden, bam! His focus goes, what's out here? What's out here? It's the work beyond the soul. The psalmist knew there is a work within, this soul work, but the soul, there is a work, this twofold work. There is a soul work beyond. Out here, this is your outer life. Your outer life, it's what is seen by others. This outer life that you cannot hide. It's what is seen by others. It's our circumstances, our relationships, our careers, our pains, our struggles, our personalities, all of that outer life right there. So we have this inner life, this inward part, but it's the work within us, but we have the work beyond us, which is all of this that can be seen. Our emotional response to this outer life right here, this work beyond us, how we respond to that out there emotionally, it comes out of the soul. It comes out of here. So if we're not responding good out here and we don't understand why am I getting so angry? Why am I angry all the time? Why am I just focused on me? Why do I make everything about me? Why am I always the victim, making myself always the victim? Why am I jealous of other people? Why am I envious? Why am I so impatient? Why am I so selfish? All of these things that come out here that people can see in action and decisions and things and conversations, because it comes from here. Nothing coming out of you, nothing out here that you're doing out here. You can't be disconnected from what's in here, because that's a product of what's in here. Soul sickness. When we have these things in place, then we have a soul sickness. We have a sick soul, a soul that is sick, and it needs help. It needs corrections. It needs healing. It needs training. If we have these things in place, then there is a sickness of soul in place. Listen to these. Do you have conflicting emotions? Conflicting emotions? Conflicting emotions. You don't understand your high and your low. All of these things. Unresolved emotions. Do you have conflicts with other people? Or do you have a situation in your life that you have not resolved it? You know, I hate so-and-so for what they did. That's an unresolved emotion. It's an unresolved emotion. Or I'm angry at her still for that. It's an unresolved emotion. I can't forgive so-and-so for that. That's an unresolved emotion. I'm afraid. I'm so afraid of this. And it just keeps recurring that I'm afraid of the what ifs, or I'm afraid of this. This is my great fear. That's an unresolved emotion. Unresolved emotion. Or if you have negative emotions, a negative Nancy, you're just negative about everything. You don't see the good in anybody. You never see anything good. A negative emotion, or uncontrolled emotions. Uncontrolled emotions. So conflicting emotions, unresolved emotions, negative emotions, uncontrolled emotions, then that means we have a soul that is sick. And if the soul is sick, we cannot impact the work beyond itself. The soul can't, beyond itself, in the way that God purposed it to do. As long as the soul is sick, has any of these things that's not right out here, means that something's not right in here, then the soul can never impact out here beyond itself the way that God intended it to. God has a great plan for the soul, remember, a great destiny for it to fulfill, the work for it to accomplish for its maker, to show its design, to represent its maker well. And it won't be able to do that. Why? Why, if it's not in here, why will we not be able to accomplish what God has purposed for us? Because our pains, our struggles, all of these things, our pains can leak out in offensive ways. You ever bump somebody or push somebody the wrong way, it'll spill out, won't it? Have you ever just gotten your head, bit off by somebody, or snapped at by somebody, and you just kind of passing by, saying hello? And all of a sudden, what do we tend to do? We take it personal because we're going to make it about us, right? Right? You're going, yeah. We really want to get beyond that, don't we? Not to make it personal. Because it's not about us. It's about the soul. It's maybe that soul is sick that just passed you. It's not well. It's hurt. And see, that's with us. If we don't deal with the pains and the conflicts inside, then we'll spill out. Our pains will spill out. Our unresolved emotions will spill out on other people in offensive ways. You say, Pam, do those people really exist? Oh yeah, look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. Go to church on any Sunday. Go to Walmart or the airport or a busy place. You'll see them everywhere. We're all the same. And if we don't fix what's in here, when we don't make that change in here, we'll continue to spill out in offensive ways. And we can't have the impact that God wants us to have. How we connect relationally to people or respond to them, how we connect with them or how we respond, is the product of what's within us. It's the product of our soul. It's what's in here. It's that state of our inner self, the soul. And you say, Pam, what's the answer? We need a bit of biblical framework for our emotions. We need a biblical framework for the soul. Because the emotions, all of that comes out of the soul. It's impossible. Now I want to tell you something. This is a huge nugget for me. It's impossible for you to be spiritually mature while being emotionally immature. The two can't be in place at the same time. You can't say I'm spiritually mature and emotionally you're immature in every area. You can't be. Because that comes out of the soul, and the soul's not right, the soul's not well, the soul's not aligned to God. Many of us stay in emotional infancy, and listen, this is hard. I know this is hard. Please come back next week. Please keep your study, because we need to learn these things. Many of us stay in emotional infancy because we've never allowed our soul to find its source in God. Our soul has to find its source in God. What we've been learning these weeks, why do I want to be prized? Why do I want to become? Why do I want to be important and have value? Why am I searching for significance? Because until we learn that our source is God, until the soul finds that its only, one and only source is God, then it will continue to have this emotional crisis out here. And your emotions are going to be leading you. Rather than a soul that's aligned with God. What's a healthy soul look like? You know, that's kind of hard to hear, wasn't it? But what does a healthy soul look like? Let's kind of change our focus, because we pretty much got the idea, what does an unhealthy soul look like? Well, but what does a healthy soul look like? Number one, complete transparency, nothing hidden. You won't have a problem with being transparent with people because you know who you are to God. My pastor has said this for many years, and I've adopted it as my own. I love it. Don't be any more or any less before others than you are before God. Don't be any more or any less before others than you are before God. And when you have reached that place, then you can be transparent with people. You don't have to put on airs. You don't have to pretend that you got it all together. Listen, I know I don't have it all together. Nobody has to tell me that. But the minute that I enter a situation with a certain crowd of people, because I travel a good bit in ministry, if I meet certain people, I have to remind myself who I am. I can get in that place where I have to pretend I'm all holy. I have to pretend, and I don't want to do that. God delivered me that from a long time ago. But listen, I constantly have to remind myself that I can have complete transparency with people, nothing hidden. That, listen, Pam Jenkins knows the only good thing about her is Jesus. She doesn't have talent or anything other than what God has given her. It's all Him. And second, God's making of us goes on interrupted by outside interference. God's making of us goes on, it continues on uninterrupted by outside interference. Because listen, that's going back to the womb. That's going back to Psalm 139. God's work goes on and it's not interrupted by what's going on outside the womb. In your mama's life, God was still working and weaving you in your mom's womb, no matter what was going on in her life outside. Things that you don't even know about or things that you weren't even aware about at the time. God's work can go on interrupted, and it doesn't interfere with His working by what's going on out here in our situations, our circumstances, our environment, or people. Our thoughts feed our soul with good. Do you know your thought and your thinking is like a buffet for your soul? What are you feeding it? Your soul's going to feed off of your thoughts. It's going to feed off of that dinner plate. Your thoughts is like a dinner plate, like a buffet. What do you feed your soul? And your thoughts are going to be feeding your soul with good, a healthy soul. Fourth, intimacy is no longer feared. You know, and transparency begins that intimacy. But you won't fear intimacy with people by sharing something that maybe you're burdened with, or you need help and you need somebody to pray with you. You won't have that fear. There are many people that will never have true relationship with others because they fear transparency and they fear intimacy. And number 5, your worth will not be found in people. A healthy soul is someone whose worth is not found in people. They're not performance driven. They're not looking for applause and praise. It doesn't matter. I mean, it'd be nice for people to like you, right? It'd be nice to be at peace with people, but that doesn't have to be in place. It doesn't matter if people are pleased with you or not, because your worth is found in Him, not in people. And next, your joy will not be dependent on outward conditions. Your joy will not be dependent on outward conditions. Not when a soul is healthy, because the soul knows where its joy comes from. And next, your soul is able to connect with other souls on an inward level. In other words, I can soul to soul minister to you. I will be able to speak to your soul. I will stop. A healthy soul will stop and think before it speaks, because they recognize that's a soul. And I want to speak to that soul. I want to remember that I'm speaking to their emotions, to their will, to their thinking, to that part that's going to go on to eternity. That part that nobody knows. I remember a lady coming up and saying, you know, I heard you years ago at a conference, and when I came in line to see you, you said this to me, such and such and such. And it was a good thing. And she said, but I went away and I have forever remembered, and that little truth that you spoke into me made all the difference in my life. See, our words we can speak in the inward part, in the soul of somebody, when the soul is healthy. And isn't that what God would want us to do? Have that level that I am now, my soul is healthy, so I can minister to the inward part of you. I can minister and speak right to your soul good things. I can make a difference for eternity in you. I love that. And lastly, you can live in security. You can live in security out of your interior life, your inward life. You can live in the security out of your inward life rather than in harm out of your outer life. Rather than in harm out of your outer life. Because you see, security, your security before others, in situations, your security is going to come from what's in here. Or your insecurity is going to come from what's in here. Every impact that you have out here, every impact that you have, whatever level that you can minister on to people, is going to come from what's inside. It's going to come from what's in here. So until you and I determine before God, before our Creator, before our holy God, that I want my soul to be at peace with you, God. I want my soul to be healthy. I want it to be aligned with you. I want it to recognize how you designed it. And that everything that I do for my soul will allow me to do for other souls on the outward of my life. I think a good healthy thing for you to do is to sit down when you have some time. Sit down with God, and I would encourage each of you to do this. Sit down with God. Find a quiet place and make a list of the outward chaos in your life that disturbs you in your inward life. What out here disturbs you in here? And how much of that disturbance is causing you to react in a way that you shouldn't? It could be family relationships, it could be a spouse, it could be your children, it could be something going on in your community or at your job, a harsh neighbor, a situation in your church, a calling on your life, and maybe your family doesn't agree with it. Maybe you got a struggle there. Maybe there's a power struggle going on. Or maybe you, if someone was to know what you think on the inside, what's going on in here, you would be afraid for them to know that because you know it's not right. Whatever is going on in here directly impacts what's out here. God wants us to have a healthy soul. And that requires a soul work on our part, allowing God to do what He did in the womb. Same relationship. God established how He works in your life in that womb in Psalm 139. So why would it change if we were created and designed that way? Why would it change after we're born? Why would it change after we breathe in life and we begin to live our life every day? God's working and level of working is still the same. His process is still the same. It's still the same. So if you sit and you make that inventory, you ask God, where am I not aligned in these truths that I've been learning, that you've been teaching me in Soul Cry? Am I looking for the attention of others? Am I trying to find my value in people or in a job, in success, in money, in looks, in my body size, my husband's affections, how many friends I have, how many likes I get on Facebook, how many followers I get? Where am I looking for my significance? Where am I looking to be prized and be treasured? And God, show me where my soul is sick. And God, I want to align that with you. Because there's the work within us that God has established in the process there. This is His ordained place of change and growth and new life. And He's designed it that way, listen, because He's got a work for you to do beyond this inner self. He's got a work out there. He's got the fields. He's got the highways and the byways. And until your soul is healthy, it will never be able to impact the world and other souls the way that God intended to.